I grew up in a church, and my parents are very religious. I grew up going to church 2-3 times a week. In that church, my earliest memory was that there was this homeless man that used to walk up and down the road, and he lived in the woods. My mom used to stop and give him rides. And one day he started coming to our church, and he always wore an old ratty suit, and he always carried a Bible. I can remember one time after a wedding seeing him pick up birdseed that they had thrown and eating it. And I can remember being maybe 5 or 6 years old and watching him walk to the front of a church and sit down and watching an usher come up there and whisper something in his ear, and they took him to the back of the church. And I asked my mom and dad about it afterwards, and she told me that he was distracting the people that were in there. And I can remember being that young and being done with God, 5 or 6 years old, maybe 7, and I've been done.
I didn't find it beneficial, mainly because church was a drag, and I didn't want to be there. There was nothing uplifting about it. You go sit there and listen to a guy that's a hypocrite as far as I could see, tell me that I wasn't getting in, and hell's hot, and hellfire and brimstone, and God doesn't want you, and you suck, and why again do I want to come to that?
From the time that I was a kid, most of them dream of being a firefighter, a policeman, or something. No, I wanted to be a preacher. I've always dreamed of that. But those kind of people in my area always shunned me. I could try to go into church and they would come pointing at you, and it just make you feel so uncomfortable that you couldn't really make yourself go back to church.
There are 120 counties in the state of Kentucky and over 5,000 churches. Yet somehow, the church at large is failing. This is my friend Jeremy. He lives in Somerset, Kentucky, and he's not a Christian.
Well, I was raised Southern Baptist, which is your pretty straightforward, saved by grace, by faith, not through works, style of belief, very much a small congregation. And then as I got older and I explored more and I explored more options and I studied, it didn't mesh up for what I thought the world was or could be, or it didn't make sense to me in the way that it clicks with some people. Church population is falling. A lot of people think that America is becoming a more Christian nation, and at a surface evangelical level, it certainly is. We're codifying more religion into our society. But if you look at church population, it's hitting all-time lows. People just don't go to church anymore. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is the prosperity gospel tells them there's no reason to. You have these big theatrical productions. It's like going to a Tool concert at these churches, and you get lost in all this. And what doesn't get driven upon is the message. Or you go to a small-town church, and you're afraid that the preacher's going to throw a copperhead at you, and what gets lost there is the message. And the message of Jesus. All those words written in red. They're right in the middle of the book. The meat and potatoes of the entire faith, of the entire religion, of the Bible. The meat and potatoes is, don't be a jerk, help people out. That's the whole book. All that other stuff, the stuff that churches get caught up on, cool. But you're missing the entire point of what Jesus said.
Jesus made it really simple. Jesus said, let me give you one command only. If you ultimately want to know what the point was, that sometimes gets lost in translation, it was to love God and to prove it by how you love your neighbor and love your neighbor as yourself. And really that was the heart of what Jesus established as his movement. And I don't think that a lot of people were misled on purpose. I think the message of the church just got lost in lots of other things, and people walked away from the church or even are stuck in a church somewhere, and they just have an incredible misunderstanding of really what Jesus came to start.
I never lost my faith, right? But I lost any interest at all in church, because church to me wasn't the same as Jesus. I stopped finding Jesus in church, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I just left. And I'm 31 years old. I moved to Eastern Kentucky, and then I moved back here at 31. Started going to the same church I grew up in. because I thought maybe if I give it another shot, maybe if I try hard enough, right? Then Easter Sunday came, and he talked about two things. He talked about homosexuality and alcohol on Easter morning. There's 200 people in the church, 100 of whom we never see, 50 of whom have probably never been to church. And he talks about two fringe issues using scripture that doesn't back up his positions on those things. And I thought, first of all, I wanted to ask him, do you know about meth? Right? Do you know about OxyContin? Do you know anything at all? Have you bothered to step outside the doors of this church and look around your own community and see the heartbreak that's caused by so many things that are not what you're preaching about?
We have so many people who just live in really difficult circumstances. They've lost hope. They've lost any kind of sense that things could be better here or that things could be different here. And so their only way of dealing with it is just to anesthetize it and make it all go away. Substance abuse is just the context of so much of what we do here that we stop thinking about it sometimes. It's every day, all day. The natural tendency is just to get hard to it and just get like, why can't these people just straighten up or go away? Or so maintaining the compassion is hard. People make bad decisions. They do wrong things. They bear the responsibility for what they've done. But a lot of them also have been placed in really hard circumstances where I don't know how you survive that without making some bad decisions.
So do you remember the first time that you ever used the circumstances, what was going on?
Yeah, well, I was at my uncle's house, and he reached a joint to me. I was about 12. From there on, it gets worse and worse. My stepdad is alcoholic, abusive alcoholic. I was always told nothing, don't be nothing. So drugs was about the only way to forget about everything. And the ones that was getting you high was the ones that was making you feel good. So that was the comfort, I guess.
So your stepdad would say to you, what would he say to you?
You're just a loser, wasn't never gonna be nothing, wasn't amount to nothing. So my uncle brought me in, and I guess I watched them do it all, get high all the time. So that's what I wanted to do, because he didn't ever say that. I went to church one time with my mom, and I was dirty, got off work, and they looked at me like I had something wrong with me. So after that, then I tried to get baptized and saved. The preacher forgot about it, so I just gave up on it.
Preacher forgot?
Yeah, said, I don't know what happened. I had my whole family there. It's always been bad for me. So I just do drugs and get high, and everybody's your friend.
So you went to the church service, your family came to watch you get baptized.
And the preacher said he forgot. That's when I just give up, just forget about it.
I'm sorry that
makes you feel bad though,
Yeah.
When you try to do better, then something happens.
Yeah. Yeah, you have hope for a minute, and then something like that happens. It's like,
Yes, it brings you right back down. Don't want to have hope. It's the life I have. I ain't never had hope.
When you see the person, when you start to understand what they've grown up with and what they've experienced and what they have and what they don't have, then the compassion comes, because you realize that this person is trying to cope with really hard circumstances.
In a state that deals with poverty at the rate that Kentucky does, in a state that deals with homelessness, that deals with drug addiction, that deals with, lack of education, lack of opportunity, lack of upward social mobility, lack of hope, you're not going to give it to people by handing them a tract and saying, hey, you're poor, you're hungry, you're a hooker, you're a needle junkie, you're dying of cancer, but Jesus loves you. It's not what they need. They don't need to be told that Jesus loves them. They need to know that you love them.
And I think that there is always hope, and there's always the capacity for faith whenever there is someone who feels loved. That's how people begin to believe that there's hope, is once we can convince them that there are real people who love you.
To give somebody hope, really, it's getting down on their level and saying, the Lord loved me at my nastiest. I have to love you at your nastiest.
The modern church has lost a clear understanding of who Christ was and how he did things.
Jesus, we believe as Christians, was the only perfect person to live in all of history. Yet, the most imperfect people of his day were the people who were most comfortable with him. And the people who thought they were the best at keeping the rules and at being religious were the people who were made most uncomfortable by Jesus.
He was always hanging out with the prostitutes and the cheats and the thieves and the swindlers, and we don't do that anymore. The church has become a fortress, and we isolate ourselves until we stop being churchy and start being real people out in the real world, actually interacting in a meaningful way. And the church is pretty useless. People aren't going to come to church. They need us to go to them.
Christianity is in a rut. No wonder we're dying, right? No wonder so many congregations are shutting their doors. When I see what Christianity looks like to people who don't know anything about Christianity, why would I want to be a Christian? Why would I want to belong to some judgy social club that gets together and have covered dishes and sings a little a few times a week? There has to be more than that.
The modern church, the doors turn the wrong way on most churches. They're acting like a vacuum when they should be acting like a fan. They shouldn't be sucking people in. They should be pushing energy out. That is the thing about your church. Just the fact that you guys are sitting here with me right now and we're having this conversation, this is what outreach is. And it's not in a forceful way. There's not even any witnessing taking place. It's opening up a conversation, because you're not going to understand how to fix the world's problems if you don't understand the people and their problems.
I came the first time to watch my wife get baptized, just out of respect, like going to a kid's graduation or something along them lines. It was just an event, and I was going there to show support. And I was drunk when I got there, and I was going to be drunk again when I left. That was just my plan. I came in just to see an old girl get baptized, and I kept coming back because of what the Creek's doing.
What is that?
Making disciples, son. Building that kingdom up. That's the job. All I know is life changed for me when I started coming to the Creek. I give absolute credit to God in all things, but the Creek really did lead me to Christianity. And it was the overall atmosphere. It was everything about it. It wasn't one thing. It was the total, from the guy that shook my hand at the door, to me putting my kids over here, to the worship service being awesome, to a guy in jeans and a t-shirt talking to me and just talking real to me. That was another thing. The Creek is quite the opposite of everything I said sucked about church. It is welcoming. If you got your little Sunday best suit and your dress or whatever, that's cool. But if you don't, that's fine too. It's an all-welcoming, truth-telling kind of place. It's not a church that's designed to keep people away. It's designed to bring them in. You could be a gay black Muslim, come right on in, man. You sit by me. You know what I mean? I don't feel like anybody at the Creek cares where you're from. It's how you come.
How can that be okay for Christians?
It's okay with Christ. You know what I mean? He didn't, Jesus broke bread with everybody, man. I feel like he'd probably be pretty disappointed in me if I didn't welcome any and all, to come around me. So, and that's what I see at the Creek. That's what I see at church.
I tried finding my way into church, I get those feelings and things, but, I was raised in a small community in a little church with, maybe if we went, it was 15 people there. And it was just, the music, everything was just so old style, I just couldn't get into it, 2 months ago, I buried my little brother, my 27-year-old brother. He died in my arms on Mother's Day. I started back using hard. I got up to using 5, 6 Opana 40s a day, a gram of dope a day, smoking weed up to 10, 15, 20 Xanaxes a day. I was trying to leave this world, to leave that pain that I was running from.
Did you feel like you had any hope?
I didn't have a bit of hope. I didn't have no hope. The only hope that I could find was the hope that I could just leave it, just get out of this world, just be the next one, you know, and along the way, everyone around me that I loved was dying. You know, I've not only buried my brothers and my sister, I've buried a best friend that was like my half-brother. My father and mother pretty much raised him. I've buried my cousin. I pulled the phone from her mouth as her 3 kids walked in. My best friend hung himself. You know, it was just everybody around me was dying off. And here I was left, you know, and that the only hope I had was just to get it done, get it over with.
Just to die.
Just to die and get it over with. I went to your all's church last week. I had one of the best times I ever had in my life. And I plan on becoming a part of that church when I'm out of here. I enjoyed it. And I appreciate you. It's making me feel so welcome.
What do you say, what would you say is different about what you experienced at the Creek?
It's not, you know, it's more my style, you know. I could understand it more, you know, the way that you break it down to us, you know. You don't try to make us feel a part of something that we're not, you know. It's like we're family, you know, and we're loved when we go in there, not that we're any different from anybody else.
I've heard about the Creek for a long time, for years, but again, I felt obligated to a specific church. I feel like every church I've gone to, it's the same thing every Sunday. You have to be saved or you're going to hell. You have to be saved or you're going to hell. Like, okay, we get that. We're saved. We know where we're going. So can you help me, tell me, you know, how I'm supposed to live my life while I'm here? And that's really what I was looking for. Basically, I had to force my husband to go.
I've gone to a lot of churches where, because of how I look or who I used to be, or tattoos or anything, you're being judged not on your character but by your appearance. And I don't have to, you know, I've never felt that here. You know, I feel like this place is doing exactly what I always believed in my heart a church should do and stand for. So I love coming here.
So our vision is to take that and plant campuses of that all across the state of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, some people might look at that and go, well, what's that going to help? We don't need more churches. You know, you guys just want to get your number bigger and all that. And we don't, that's fine. That's going to be said.
Right.
What do you think about that approach, and can it have an effect? Is that helpful? Is that useful? Is that like, you know, what do you think about it?
Well, so in some ways I have been opposed to church planting because I see people planting churches in communities that have churches just like them. And I don't think that, I think that's growing for the sake of adding numbers. But I think in Eastern Kentucky there is a drought of spiritual nourishment. A drought. Eastern Kentucky is under-churched. And I don't mean there are not enough church buildings in Eastern Kentucky because there are already too many. But I mean they are under-churched. They are under Jesus, at least. And I don't care if it's Lutheran or non-denominational or Episcopalian or a not-so-hard-shell Baptist church. I want to see people nourished and met where they are in their own communities without setting pretense, without setting conditions. Come as you are. If we say we are going to be radically inclusive, we have to be radically inclusive. And I think we have to go into communities in Eastern Kentucky where we don't have that, and we have to open new churches. And we have to let the old churches die. And I don't think there's any shame at all in attracting worshipers who might be on the membership rolls of another church at a place they haven't been in 10 years. Or they're the Creasters, right? They show up at Christmas and Easter. We have to do something about that. And we can't expect them to be Christ's hands and feet in the community when they don't even understand that as a concept. When they think Jesus is the judgy person who told mom she couldn't wear pants to church.
You know, what's happened in our community here in London, what's happening at our other campus in Somerset, we are hopeful and we are confident that that can begin to happen in other communities. I think that we can take Christians and we can take believers and we can mobilize them and we can redirect their thoughts and their attention, their affection towards what our mission is, to love God, love people, and make disciples. And in the end, we really can't control who responds to the message, but we can control that we have properly communicated what that message is, and that we've tried to the best of our ability to represent the one who gave us the message to begin with, and that was Jesus.
It's just sets you up. I'd love to do better. It's like I like coming down here talking to Joe. It gives you hope.
Jason's talking about Joe Arnett, who spends 7 hours a week with inmates at the jail. Not unlike Joyce, who works with women at the jail and has even brought addicts into her home to help them recover. It's individuals like these that bring hope to those around them. This is the church as Jesus described it. It's Bill and Chris Deaton who use their influence and resources to love their employees. It's Josh Whittington who took a pay cut to go to work for a substance abuse treatment center, and a few months later baptized Mark Canada, a resident at that treatment center. It's teachers who invest just as much energy in the impoverished child as they do the privileged. Coaches who love and encourage every player. It's Crystal who gives up her Sundays to serve on the production team so people can come experience God in a relevant, engaging way. It's Kristen who serves in Kidscreen, making sure kids have fun environments where they can learn about Jesus on their level. It's doctors, bus drivers, business owners, mechanics, waitresses. It's you. The bottom line is this: our vision to change Kentucky will only be as successful as your willingness to selflessly love your neighbors. Our prayer as a church is this: Lord, give us Kentucky.